Hi, this is Mike from Software Confidence. Welcome to another episode of Software Success Disciplines. In the previous episodes, we put together a simple web application and got it under a source code control. In this episode, we're going to introduce continuous integration. It's an automated way of assessing the health of our check-ins to Subversion, so we'll soon be aware if we introduce a compilation error or break a test. This is a great service to yourself because it lets you relax as you evolve your software, and also a great service to your team because it helps make each team member responsible for what they commit. We'll start by looking at how continuous integration fits into the software development process. Because continuous integration works hand in hand with source code control, I'm going to set the scene by showing how source code control fits into my day-to-day workflow as a software developer. Usually it all starts with a requirement statement of some sort written on an index card. Say I pick up a card stating that a logging capability must be added to the same method in the Hello World project. Fine, I say, no problem. The next thing to do is to have a cup of tea with my nan. Then I open up a terminal window and check out the trunk of the Hello World project. Open the project in my favorite text editor and get ready to make the change. Usually I'd start by writing a test to capture the essence of the required change, and I suggest you should too, but I'll skip it in this case because what I'm trying to do here is establish the position of continuous integration in the software development process, not demonstrate the perfect process from beginning to end. Having wriggled out of that one, I'm now going to go ahead and just make the required change. I know from previous projects that I can use commons logging for what I need to do. So I download the jar, and place it in the appropriate lib directory. Production in this case because it's going to be used by production code. Then I write the necessary code using the log factory class and write out an information message that the same method was called. After making a change, I discipline myself to run the tests. And I find I have a compilation error. I'm being told that the compiler doesn't know anything about this commons logging log factory class. Clearly I need to make the commons logging jar available to the compiler when it's compiling the production code. So I check the compile target in the ant file to see what its class path is. Well, when I look at the compile production target, I see the javac task used there doesn't have a class path at all. So it's no wonder I have compile errors. Adding a class path is straightforward. A nested class path element containing a path element. Copy it, paste it, and get it to point to the production jar files. Now I can try again. And I get past the production step, but the tests fail. I check what the JUnit report tells me by looking at it in Firefox. One failure, which is a no class def found from my commons logging class. So back to the ant file I go again, and return the complement to the unit tests target by pasting in the path to my production libraries. As an aside, the smell of duplication is beginning to intensify in this build file now, so I may have to look at that in the near future. I'll make a note of it on an index card so I can be sure to come back to it. Right. Now I rerun the tests, and we're green. It's time to check in to Subversion. SVN CI. CI stands for check-in. With an appropriate comment using the -m clause, adding logging, press enter, and I get confirmation that my changes were committed to the server. On the blackboard, I'll summarize what I just did like this. Now imagine John is working away on the same code. This terminal window represents John at work. At some stage after I checked in the commons logging changes to Subversion, John tells the server to give him any changes that other people made. This is called updating, and it's not something we've covered yet, but we should still be able to follow along with what John did. He would have issued the svn up command. Up stands for update, and it brings his working copy up to date with the latest changes made in the repository. I'll show you where to go if you want to read up on all these various Subversion commands. Point your browser to http://svnbook.redbean.com. This is an online version of an O'Reilly book on Subversion. Scroll down a little and you'll see that there is a released version dealing with Subversion 1.5 and an in-progress version dealing with 1.6. 1.5 is fine for our purposes, so click on the multiple page HTML edition. This is a very extensive table of contents, and you're more than welcome to browse through it if you wish, especially if you're on vacation at the beach, but I'd like to get us down to Chapter 9 as quickly as possible, because I'm not on vacation at the beach. Chapter 9 is the Subversion command reference section, and at the very bottom of this list you'll find SVN update. Click on it, and you'll get a nice summary of what it's about. I'll draw your attention to these letters here, A, B, D, U, and the rest. Don't try to remember these letters, just remember that they're mentioned here, but note especially that U means updated. Before that detour, we were sitting with John, watching him do his Subversion update. Alright John, show us what you did. You can see the changes to the build file and Hello World coming in. Both changes are prefixed by the capital letter U. I drew your attention to this letter 2 seconds ago when we were reading the Subversion book. So Subversion is telling us that these two files are being updated. We expected this because we watched me update them and check them in. Now what happens if John runs his tests? He gets a failure. The same failure I got earlier when I didn't have commons logging on the compiled class path. But why is that? I'll cut straight to the chase and tell you that his lib production directory doesn't contain commonslogging.jar. That's because adding a file to a working copy, as I did by copying commonslogging.jar into lib production, is not sufficient to have Subversion manage it for you. Let's go back to my original working copy for a minute. Now time for another Subversion command, svn st. St stands for status. When I run it, I see a question mark beside commonslogging.jar. The question mark means the file is not managed by Subversion and is only sitting here on disk in my working copy. I need to tell Subversion to manage the file for me, and I do that using the svn add command. svn add lib production commonslogging.jar. And now again I need to check in with an appropriate comment, and I see confirmation that the jar was committed. Putting on John's hat again, I do a Subversion update with svn up, and now I can run my tests successfully. Back at the blackboard, I'll sketch what happened, with the check-in that caused the problem represented as a red line that flows through to John's working copy.